everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing some face palettes. These are pretty much palettes that have highlighters, blushes, or some type of like blush bronzer duo or blush highlighter duo. I do have a couple here outside of my little basket. For the most part, I keep these all in like a little plastic basket that I got from Walmart. I'm not going to get rid of too many of these, but I am just going to go ahead and show you guys what I have in my collection. Let's go ahead and start off with the ones that I have in the back here. These are from Tarte. They are the holiday palettes. This is the Color Wheel Amazonian Clay Blush Palette. This one I think came out about 2 years ago. It does have some really nice blushes and highlighters. I am going to be keeping this one. I love these and I love using those for travel. And then I picked up this year's or last year's, I think this is the 2017 one. And this is also very gorgeous. It did have a couple of different shades, and the highlighters in this one are a little bit lighter than the one from, I think the other one was like the 2016 one. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this one. I have two here from Sephora. This is the Sephora blush palette, and I really like the quality of these blushes. You have a couple of shimmery blushes and a couple of matte blushes, but I really like the quality of them. They're really nice and pigmented, so I am going to be holding on to this blush palette. And then I picked up the highlighter palette. I actually picked this up because it was supposed to be a dupe for the Nicole Guerrero highlighting palette, and I love this highlighting palette. It's very, very soft and buttery. It's just absolutely gorgeous. These blend beautifully on the skin. They're not very powdery, and then when you apply some type of setting spray on it, it just melts into the skin. So definitely keeping this highlighter palette. I have two blush palettes here from Lorac. I'm actually going to be selling these on my Mercier site. This one was like a Lorac, a holiday blush palette. It was the Cue the Confetti. This is a highlighter and blush palette. So it has a few blushes and highlighters that are part of the standard line. So you have Technicolor, a Vivid, Tinge, and then Spotlight is a gorgeous highlighter. I'm not going to swatch this because I've already sanitized it to sell. But Spotlight is a gorgeous highlighter, and I believe this is exclusive to this palette. It has a really nice mirror, so I am going to be selling this on my Mercier site. And then I have the Lorac Unzipped Cheek Palette. This has some beautiful colors, but I just don't find myself using this because I have so many blush palettes and face palettes already. So I am also going to be selling this on my Mercier site. I'm going to quickly go through this basket because I don't think I'm going to be getting rid of much in here. So I have 3 of the IT Cosmetics Confidence in Your Glow. These are like a blush, bronzer, and highlight in one. This one is in the color Instant Natural Glow. It's just a really nice palette. So this one is more on like the purpley side, like the mauve side. Then you have Instant Nude Glow, which is more of like a nudie kind of everyday type of color. And then this is the more peachy one. This is Instant Warm Glow. I love these. They are a little bit on the pricey side, but I like the fact that it's a all-in-one type of product, and it's big enough where your brush can actually fit in here. So my bronzer brush can actually fit into this area here. I have a few here from ColourPop, and I'm going to be keeping all of these. This one is in Done Deal, which has a beautiful pinky highlight and very bright pink blush, but it's actually very wearable, so it blends into the skin quite nicely. And this pinky highlight is so smooth and buttery. I think these are still on the ColourPop website. I would definitely recommend them. Then you have the Knockout, which has a bronzer or like a blushy bronzer, and then this gorgeous like peach highlight. This one is called Double Play, and this one has a bronzer and a highlight in here. I guess you can get away with using this as a blush if you really wanted to. The highlighter in here is a little bit more of like a champagne-y color, but it is also stunning. And the last one in here was one of the more popular ones. This is called the Topaz Press Powder highlighter and bronzer, and it has a bronzer in Golden Moment and the highlighter in She's Here to Stay. This was with the Alexis Ren collection. This has a beautiful bronzer and an absolutely gorgeous golden highlighter. So that's the bronzer right there, and then that is the golden highlighter. So then we have this Lorac highlighting palette. This was part of the Pirates of the Caribbean collection, and it has, for the most part, all highlighters and 2 blushes, and the blushes in here are very subtle. You have one that's a little bit more on the neutral side and one that's a little bit more on like the pinky neutral side. They're both really, really nice blushes. I have traveled with this palette before, but the highlighters in here are so soft and buttery. I didn't pick up much from the Pirates of the Caribbean collection because I thought it was kind of an odd collection, but I really love this highlighter palette. Then I was actually gifted this palette. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Moonchild palette. I didn't think about picking up any of like the holographic highlighting palettes because I'm just not really into them. But since I was gifted this, I went ahead and kept it because I thought it did have some really pretty highlighters in here. I really like this one in the color Pink Heart. I think it's a really beautiful duochrome highlighter, and I also really like this one in Lucky Clover. I don't really have anything with a green flash like this in my collection, and worst comes to worst, I can always use these as eyeshadows. I do think they are very pretty, but honestly I would not have picked this up on my own. I have 2 here from MAC. These were part of the Nutcracker collection. I have the Nutcracker Sweet Copper Face Compact. This is the one with Whisper of Guilt in it, but then I also really liked this blush in here. I think it was a very pretty blush, a very unique tone. I don't have a blush quite like this in my collection, and of course I wanted Whisper of Guilt. This one I actually prefer better to the Sweet Copper one. This one has a blush called At Dusk, which is absolutely beautiful, and it also has a highlighter in here called Tutu, and these are both in the Extra Dimension skin finish. But can you guys see that highlighter? It is absolutely stunning. I really like this one. Then I have this one from Vintage. One is in the color Rose Quartz and the other one is in Chocolate Diamond. They're very smooth, very buttery, and they're actually tones of highlighters that I don't have already in my collection, and they have that really pretty like undertone to them that makes them very unique but also very workable. So these are stunning. Next I have the Sleek Solstice palette, and quite honestly I'm not very impressed with this palette. I think they're a little bit glittery, and all 3 of these just end up looking the same when you put them on the face. I don't really understand the hype around this highlighter. I ended up decluttering the other one in Cleopatra's Kiss and sold that on my Mercari website already. I am going to keep this one, but honestly I may declutter it if I don't get any more use out of this within the next year or so. Then I have one here from Estee Lauder. This is the Bronze Goddess Summer Glow Multi Palette. I love this palette. I've talked about it several times in my weekly makeup basket. Definitely keeping onto this one. It is a very gorgeous like baked gelée formula. It's very subtle though, so the highlighter in here is a little bit more subtle than my other highlighters, but I still really love this palette. Then I have the Spotlight palette. This is in the color Pearl. I was a little disappointed when I received this because I thought it was supposed to be in that like limited edition packaging, but it just came in this very plain and basic packaging in my opinion. There wasn't anything on the box, there wasn't an insert, there wasn't anything that indicated that this was a collaboration with Casey Holmes. So I was a little disappointed in that because I really did want to support her as a YouTuber. I really like these 2, but the third one is a little bit on the chunky side. The last one here is actually one I'm thinking about getting rid of. This is the Pure Bronze and Brighten palette, and although I really like the highlighter in here, I don't really use anything else in here. This blush is a little bit too deep of a blush for me, and you only need the tiniest amount for this highlighter to work on your skin. So I actually do think I'm going to pass this one along. Next I have this Tarte Double Duty Beauty Contour and Highlights palette. I recently picked this up, and the reason I picked this up is because I thought this looked like a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury palette. I've been wanting to get that palette for a long time. This bronzer slash contour color is beautiful. It's very smooth and buttery, and this highlighting palette, this highlighting color is gorgeous. Then I have the Ambient Metallic Strobe Lighting palette. I picked this up over the holidays. I absolutely love these highlighters. I think these are actually still available on the Sephora website. Next, I have the Tarte Skin Twinkle Volume 2 palette. I never picked up the Volume 1 because there was like a center shade that everyone seemed to hate in that one. But this one has the highlighters Daylight, Skylight, Spotlight, and Candlelight. This has a very nice vanilla scent to it, and the highlighters in here are very buttery and smooth. They're a little bit on the powdery side, but honestly nothing that a setting spray couldn't fix. So I'm going to be keeping that one. And then I got this as part of some type of kit. This is also from Tarte. It's the Blush and Glow Highlighter Duo in the color Pink Champagne. I've seen a few of these, but I've honestly never seen it in this color Pink Champagne, so I think this may have been like a limited edition color that was made just for that kit, and I love this. Again, this also has that very nice light vanilla scent to it. Next, I have this e.l.f. It's a duo, and I think it's in the color Fiji Matte. This has a really nice blush in it, and I really also enjoy the bronzer in here, and it's relatively inexpensive. I picked it up because I wanted to try the formula of it. The bronzer is just perfect for me. I could pretty much use this like all year round, so I really like the bronzer in here. Next, I have a duo from Tom Ford. This is the Skin Illuminating Powder Duo in the color Moonlight. I love this. I'm keeping it. I normally mix these two shades together. I picked this up at a CCO, and I'm definitely holding on to this. Then I picked this up from Laura Mercier. I believe these are all permanent highlighters, and I picked this up because I've been seeing a lot of people talk about these highlighters, and I kind of just wanted to test the formulation of this. Last year or the year before last, they actually released something very similar to this, and I didn't pick it up. It just wasn't in my budget, so when I saw it come out this year, I went ahead and snagged it, and so far so good. I've really been liking it, but this was really one of the underrated holiday palettes. This was the Cover FX Perfect Highlighting Palette. The highlighters in here are very smooth, very buttery. It has a nice range of colors. You have some duochrome highlighters in here. So next I have the Becca Après Ski Glow Face Palette. This was another holiday highlighter palette that I picked up, and this has a few bronzers in here and a blush. Sorry, I'm trying not to blind you guys. You guys can see the camera there. Hello. So this reminded me of one of the blushes in the Jaclyn Hill palette, which is why I initially didn't pick this up, but since I sold the Jaclyn Hill palette and this went on sale, I went ahead and picked this up because I do like the formulation of these blushes and highlighters. And a lot of the permanent shades that were in this palette I didn't own in the full size, so I went ahead and just picked this up because I didn't really plan on picking up a full size of any of the permanent colors, so it's really nice to have just a small size in a palette. So then I have two highlighter palettes. These are both from ColourPop, and I'm thinking about getting rid of one of these. This is the Give Me More Pressed Highlighter palette. Honestly, I wasn't that impressed with this palette. I picked this up recently, but do you guys see how chunky those highlighters are? They're just super chunky. I really don't enjoy the formulation of these highlighters. I just wasn't really impressed, so I think I am eventually going to get rid of this palette. I do want to play around with it a little bit more because honestly I've only used one or two shades out of this palette. I do want to give the other shades a fair try, but I picked this one up. This is the Innuendo palette from ColourPop. And this is stunning, and the formula is so different from the Give Me More highlighting palette. This is very smooth and buttery. It glides on the skin. There's no like chunky glitter or anything in there. And then lastly, I have one glow kit from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is the only glow kit I've ever purchased from her. This one has 4 highlighters in here that I think work on my skin tone. The other ones, you had maybe 2 that worked and like 2 that absolutely didn't work. I think the formula is stunning, but this is probably the only glow kit I will ever purchase. And lastly, I have one here that I am going to be selling on the Mercier website, even though the packaging is so cool on this. This is from Naked Cosmetics, and this is the Holographic Highlighter Collection. and this is like a dupe for the Moonchild, the Anastasia Beverly Hills like Moonchild palette, and I think it's really beautiful, but I already have that palette and I've used it, so I'm going to go ahead and sell this one. This is the last bit of my face palette collection. I can tell you right now that I'm probably not going to get rid of any of these because these are a little bit more on the higher end side. So I have two NARS blush palettes here. This is the NARS Unfiltered 2 palette. I'm definitely going to be keeping this. This has a lot like pinkier shades. This has a couple more deep shades, and I really wanted to get it for this blush right here in Exhibit A. This is a gorgeous blush in the winter time. You only need the tiniest amount of this, and it gives you just that frostbitten look on the skin. Definitely love that one. And this is the Unfiltered 1 palette. So then I have the NARS Stephen Klein palette. This is the One Shocking Moment palette. And I picked this up off of, I want to say Coffee Break with Danny was selling this palette. This is one of the first NARS palettes that I ever picked up, and I really do enjoy it. And it has a full-size Laguna in there, which I love. And then this one also has a full-size Laguna in here. This is the Narcissist Cheek palette. I picked this up off the NARS website because it was heavily discounted. This is the One Night Stand palette, and this also has Laguna in here. It has Deep Throat and Orgasm in here, and honestly it was being sold at a pretty heavily discounted price, and I've always wanted to try Orgasm and Deep Throat, so I went ahead and picked this up. I have two blush palettes from Lorac, and I love these blush palettes. I like the colors of the blushes in here a lot better, and I really like the highlighters in here. So this is from the California Dreaming collection, and then of course I was going to keep this one. This is part of the Beauty and the Beast collection, and honestly, even if I never use this palette, I am just going to keep it for collector's purposes because it is an absolutely stunning packaging. This was last year's. This is the blush palette for the holiday collection last year. They released a circular one and then a rectangular one like this. So I went ahead and picked this up. I honestly haven't played around with this one, but I mean, come on, the packaging is gorgeous. And then I actually fell in love with Tarte blush palettes because of this one right here. This is just their clay blush palette, so I'm definitely going to be keeping that. I have a Becca blush palette here. This was a limited edition one. It's called the Blush with Light palette. It has a shade Wisteria. It also has Songbird and Snapdragon. And I honestly had never tried Becca blushes before, so that's the shade Wisteria right there. And I really love this. If I ever see a full size of this, I probably would purchase a full size of this blush. I have a few Hourglass palettes here. So this one is the Ambient Strobe Lighting Blush palette. I actually missed out on purchasing the first blush palette like this that they had released. It was a trio of blushes. This one is the Strobe blush palette, and I don't like this as much as the regular blushes. I do have a full size of Mood Exposure, and even though Mood Exposure is a little bit, I don't even want to say like glittery, it's a little luminescent. These have a lot more like shimmer in it than Mood Exposure. So hopefully they come out with another palette like this, and I'll definitely be picking it up over the holidays because I really like the formulation of Hourglass blushes. I still like this, but I can only really wear this in the spring or summertime. This one was from 2 years ago. I didn't pick up the first palette that they had created like this because I just really wasn't interested in it. This one was the first one that I picked up, and this was maybe 2 years ago. This is the Lighting Edit palette, and it had all like newer limited shades in here. So this is a finishing powder, this is a bronzer, this was one of their new strobe highlighters, and then you had two blushes, which I honestly love mixing these two blushes together. It creates a very pretty natural everyday blush. And then this bronzer is a little on the light side for me, but I still use it if I do want some type of like light bronze, or if I want to set like a cream bronzer, for instance. This highlighter is nothing super special, but it's still pretty. It's still a subtle highlight, but I really do like this setting powder. This is one of the setting powders that made me really like the Hourglass powders. And then I purchased this palette here. This has diffuse light and dim light, and I had fallen in love with diffuse light and dim light. I actually prefer dim light. This is a better like all over face powder for me. This is really nice to set under the eyes, but I normally don't wear concealer. This is Luminous Bronze Light, and I actually have a mini of this, and I really love this bronzer. I think these two are like special shades made for this palette. I'm sorry, this is the Ambient Edit Volume 3 palette. I have one highlighter palette from Kathleen Lights. This is the Makeup Geek highlighter palette, and she has the highlighters Sunlight, Starlight, and Nightlight. I'm going to be keeping this. I really love Kathleen Lights. I use these every so often. I honestly forget about it, but I would still keep it as a collector's piece because I really love Kathleen Lights. I think she did a stunning job with this highlighter palette, so I would definitely hang on to that. And then I have these two e.l.f. blush palettes. These have a really nice range to them. I like the formula of them, so I'm probably going to declutter these from my personal collection and put them in like a little designated makeup bag just to do on other people. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!